Well, you're creating your own niche.
Yeah, I guess so.
Because it's game theory. When you have
Yeah.
when you have the crazy nonsense, you're like, oh, everyone's used to crazy nonsense. Now I have to do crazy
Precisely.
nonsense to then get a bit of this audience, right? And
Yeah,
you're not
it's
taking
true.
away from the crazy nonsense. You're just being part of that niche. But no, you're saying, do you know what? I'm creating a new normal here.
Yeah, an artist's vision,
Yeah.
essentially, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, hello everyone. Welcome back to the Lyceum podcast. I'm with Charon. I met Charon online. It's going to be a fantastic episode. One could probably call this a limited edition one. Enthusiastic speaker, passionate. And, you know, we appreciate people like that around here. And as usual, like, subscribe and comment. But as usual as well, I don't want to take the dance floor away from you too much. I'm going to let him introduce himself and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Riyadh. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure already having spoken to you for a short time and coming on and meeting you now. My name is Charon. I am the CEO and founder of Last Love, which is a new dating agency app that's about to hit the US and UK, Canadian and Australian market in a few weeks. Our ambition is to make marriage great again, but at the very least make relationships, long-term relationships great again if marriage is not your thing. But in essence, to move dating and intergender relationships, take it away from decadence and debauchery. So yeah, that's us in a nutshell. Yeah.
So essentially, it sounds like you are a visionary person in the dating market. You perhaps saw a problem or a hole. Where do you think you can fill in some gaps?
Sure. Our core ethos is love is important, absolutely, throughout the life cycle of a relationship. But I think too much importance definitely is put on lust, because that's all that the current dating apps promote, right? They promote those 3 seconds that you see a picture. Do you lust after this person? If you do, swipe right, right?
It's almost a marketing game, essentially.
Absolutely. So this is our ethos. Relationship mechanics.
Okay, interesting.
We believe that because we are experts in relationships, me personally, I've considered myself to be an expert in relationships. No matter love is important, but if the mechanics of your relationship don't align, you can never really have a long-term relationships unless you are really well versed in how to execute relationships and you really have a higher relationship intelligence. Now, what do I mean about relationship mechanics? What I mean is, if your past, present, view of the future, your attitude towards money, risk, politics, your attitude towards conflict resolution, attachment styles, trust, if all these things align, you're more likely to have a long-term relationship with better outcomes.
So is it about creating statistically the most probability, the highest probability of a successful relationships by examining the mechanics within that, essentially?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
You've hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
And the thing is, this is known to us. Having a long-term successful relationship is not some magical concept. We have the data, we have the studies. Helen Fisher, John Gottman, Jordan Peterson, Amir Levine. These people have written whole studies for decades on how to have a successful long-term relationship based on statistics.
And also there's the other aspect of things, I would say. I think throughout history too, you've had the poets, the artists, the romanticists who've explaining things that are, I think today we just have a scientific language explaining what relationship is. But I think sometimes we ignore how the past have also done the same thing, but they've done it through flowery artistic imagery too. So I think you have a combination of both. I think you can find a lot of answers in the two, like a scientific view and an artistic view of love.
I think what you said there is perfect. Like, it's completely right. It used to be artistic, which held the exact same truth. It's just our language is now very, we're so clever and modern, we need to have statistics now.
For sure,
right?
I agree with you. Completely agree with you there. Yeah.
So, that's the vision. What we're finding is, and this isn't rocket science, like I said, this has all been known to us, but it goes a step further. So that we call it the matching mechanism. That's essentially our secret sauce. Okay. But there are other elements to the mechanics of dating as an industry that I think are very unfair and very sinister that we're also fixing. So the matching mechanism is one of our selling points. The other two are, we're actually autonomous.
Okay.
We're an autonomous dating agency app. I'll explain that what that means. And we have what's called a success-based payment model, which is really revolutionary in the business world.
Interesting.
So autonomous dating agency app. So our parents will know, back in the day, dating agencies used to be prevalent. Someone would come to your house, get a feel for who you are, ask you what type of person you want to be with, and then go back to the office and try to remember like who they
Okay,
have in their portfolio.
That's interesting,
That's what we do, but we do it on a technological level using data, big data and science.
So is it like a dating CV?
Essentially, yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. But again, like we said, based on statistics that are proven for long-term relationship success, we aren't dictating this. We're getting the studies.
In accordance, your dating CV is in accordance to the statistics and
yes,
what we alluded to earlier.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what your past is. We ask really deep, personal, psychological, familial history questions.
And by doing that, you kind of surpass the superficiality of the dating app by a standard.
You couldn't have said it more better than that. But the incentive that we use, because it's very personal, when we launch the app and you go on it, you will see how personal it is, down to like your parents' earning capacity and things like this, because this stuff matters. Do you come from a divorced household? This stuff matters. But the way we try to encourage people to answer honestly is no one sees the answers to your questions.
Oh, okay.
We're an agency. We don't serve profiles for you to swipe with. You sign up for free, you input your information for free, and then you do nothing for the lifetime you're our user. You do nothing. When we find you a user, we'll show you their image, show you a voice recording of them describing themselves, but you'll never see the answer to their questions because we want people to answer honestly, and those things are so personal.
Okay.
We wouldn't expect a user to provide that information to someone that may never be in a relationship with them, right?
That's true.
So you trust us with that information, and then we match you with someone you're going to have a higher relationship success with. But what we're hoping is we've created an environment where people are leaning into having those conversations. So you're going to think, okay, well, Last Love's matched with this person, based on these deep questions. That hopefully invite you to have those deep conversations with your match.
Yeah, I think a lot of people nowadays are kind of bored and fatigued of the superficiality of these apps that base you on appearance and profiles, your picture quality, lustful urges essentially. And it sounds like you've recognized a move towards a lust for intellectuality in a sense, or a lust for corresponding identities with each other instead of a visual perception. So it sounds like an app I would like, because I like to have conversation and meaningful conversation. And it's very hard to tell by someone's look what they're interested in, And it's actually, I think the problem with dating apps too, which I had a problem with in the past, is that it's emotional investments. You're talking to people, you're sharing your story, sharing your ideas, you're communicating, and these apps in a certain way kind of monetize off of your emotional investment. So it's actually kind of nice you save us half the time. So I can go, okay, they're interested in this, interested in that. But what gave you this idea? What inspired you to create such a platform? Because I think because it sounds like you're an artist with a vision, and in order to understand its work, you need to understand the artist behind it. So what inspired you to do so?
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. It's a good observation. So I've been building companies for a while, but we all live vicariously through our single friends. I'm actually...
That's interesting.
I've only ever been in long-term relationships. I don't do the short-term thing, my longest relationship's been 5 years. I'm currently in a 2.5, 3 year one as well, and there was some in between there as well. And I've always, the story is I'm one of 4 brothers.
Okay.
So
competitive household?
Yes.
Oh, of course.
But I'm the third out of 4. There's a year between the top 3 of us, and my younger brother, there's a 5-year difference between me and him. He was supposed to be a girl. My parents went again and go, you know what, we'll go again. We'll see if we get a girl. Yeah. And another guy popped out, right?
Just your luck.
So I never understood women before I started dating them.
Okay, that's really interesting you say that, because I would say I understand women really well, because I grew up with just nothing about women.
A sister, yeah.
Yeah.
And I have a friend like this, a close friend, and he's the same, right?
Yeah,
but I didn't have that privilege, because it is a privilege. It is absolutely a privilege.
Absolutely. I completely agree.
So when I entered the dating market, I thought, I'll just be nice and kind and that'll be fine. It's not.
No.
Relationships are so much more complex.
Yeah, you need to understand the female psychology.
Absolutely.
So I think a lot of problem with men out there, they apply male psychology to female psychology. And I think it's weird, because I think if we can mutually understand there's a difference between the female psychology of relationships and love. She has her own demands and wants, and so do we. And if I apply what I say to you as my friend to girls, of course I'm going to get a lack of reaction,
So the story is, I've been studying female psychology, relationship psychology, female biochemistry for 10 years.
Wow. Yeah.
So when I didn't have a good relationship with a girl, I didn't say women are mean or women are bad or women are bad. I said, I need more knowledge.
You looked in the mirror, essentially.
I spoke to pastors. I spoke to elderly people. I read books, and that's where I got my data. So this whole time when I was building other companies and doing this as a social hobby to better my own life, eventually I was in between, didn't have a project I was working on. I thought, this dating thing's awful. This fresh and fit, this is awful. I know the solution here. I've read about the solution. Let me create a product that enables the solution.
But it's interesting you say that, because it sounds like you, through your failures of maybe dating, you essentially didn't turn into resentment and blame everyone else. You kind of, it's kind of that art of prudence. You looked at the internal self mirror essentially and assessed what could change to benefit my own relationship status. But I would say that is a criticism, I would say, of dating apps. I want to see your opinion on this, is that I think it kind of maybe destroys the incentive to self-improve, essentially. So if I'm not successful in the dating world in person because of my character, things I say, I'm impulsive, and women reject me, in rejection is a good sign to develop and look in the mirror. But if I could just go on a dating app and I'm going to get a date regardless, perhaps it maybe destroys the incentive to improve yourself.
I agree entirely with that concept. And, you know, we care more about relationships than we do dating, but I agree with you. I agree with you. There's not much more that needs to be offered on that, but I'll offer a different perspective. I'm just agreeing with your perspective.
Yeah, please do.
Something else is I feel like dating, and I've heard a story very recently about just like, you know, a relationship that started 4 weeks in, there was infidelity. It's just ludicrous, isn't it? But I feel like people are just not even getting... People aren't even getting past the first gate. People aren't even getting beyond a year to even feel encouraged.
Yeah, right.
Like, you need some... Like, when you get discouraged immediately when you do anything... Like, you're like, you've got no data to play around with. People have no data to play around with.
Nothing to compare it
yes.
to. Yeah, I get what
it's not even about comparing. You're not... I mean, the year doesn't even count. Just to be kind, I'll say anything less than a year really doesn't count. Really, after 2 years, the novelty's worn off. You've had 2 Christmases, 2 Valentine's Day. It's all getting a bit boring now, and reality sets in, right?
Yeah.
That's when you start learning. I just feel like if people had, and this is the game theory, everyone's messing around with each other. Everyone's in the wrong, right? But if people just had 2 years to reflect and go, oh, you know, when I did that happened, when I did that happened, because you need time to experiment. People just don't have that. So
and it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, with Last Love, you're trying to fix that problem there, essentially.
We can't fix everything.
Of course, but you can always try. What's the harm in her?
And this is the ethos. The ethos is, I was speaking to someone recently, and the highest good is I teach you relationship intelligence.
That is a good
Firstly, I can teach you, but you can never really learn it until you do it.
Yeah, you have to put it in practice.
Because if you want to get good at relationships, you have to relationship.
I agree.
So the next best thing I can do is I can introduce you to someone who aligns very closely to give you the best chance at executing and gives you the best chance of building the pedigree, building the learning through the experience. That's the best we can do. With that being said, there is a relationship intelligence element in the future. We would like to provide some sort of, I won't call it coaching, but some sort of advice. We'd like people like Riyadh on the platform to maybe share his views, right, about what he's learned, because we align with your your vision and your approach. So that is a vision of ours. But in the first sort of version, it is just to try to match you with someone so close that you can have a long-term relationship with. If you wouldn't mind, if we bring it back to your autonomous nature,
of course,
like I was saying before, so it's the matching mechanism, sophisticated, autonomous. People are spending, the average man, the average user is spending 90 minutes per day, every day, swiping on dating apps.
90 minutes?
90 minutes.
Football match, basically, yeah. Wow.
It takes the average male 6,000 swipes and 2 months to score a date.
A date?
It takes the average user 57 dates to score a relationship.
And why do you think this is the case? Is this a cultural problem? Is this a dating app problem? Is this a relationship between men and women problem? Because it sounds like a multifaceted problem where perhaps a woman who's attractive has so many options. It's almost like a analysis paralysis, essentially. You've got this guy who offers good things, this guy offers good things, and then 7 more guys just came in, and then you talk to this guy, and then 9 more just came in. So essentially, it's like a river rapids for some of these women, essentially. And some of us just keep getting ignored, you know? You can't catch all the salmon in the river, you know?
Yes, I agree with you entirely. There's many levels to this. I do have a response. So interestingly, the top 10 to 20% of men and women, the most desirable, they garner the attention on dating apps, the next 50 to 40% of the respective opposite genders, and the bottom 40 and 50 get nothing. But having nothing, as we know in life, is just as bad as having everything. So
wow.
the women
I
or
like that
men
one, you know.
who are getting loads of matches, they've got this challenge of having to discern the good from the bad. And that's as much as you may not connect with me on this, that is just as hard as having nothing to play around with. Because
I completely agree with
so
you.
those that are getting no matches, they're upset because they've got none. And those that have got loads, these girls have hundreds. How are they supposed to discern?
Yeah, it's true. Well, I'll say from my experience on using dating apps, I've been quite lucky on dating apps. Like I get quite.
You are a good-looking chap, Riyadh,
thank
so
you,
I
bro.
wouldn't be surprised.
But this is what's funny though, because when I was at 18, 19, 20, I was very, very overweight, okay? I was a different look. So on dating apps, I never was successful. I would get the one odd match here. And then after lockdown, I was training, I lost loads of weight, I had a bit of a glow up, as you would say. Appreciate that. Now it's not a problem. But the problem is, it's too many options
Now it's too many.
And I'm like,
yeah,
she's beautiful, she's beautiful, she's beautiful. So I was like, how can I talk to all of these women at once?
Okay, it's a great point you've made there. In answer to your previous question, like, what is the problem? There's an arc, there's levels.
Yeah, for sure.
There's an ultimate root. The root is the business leader. As a business leader, I've got to decide with the product, with the service that I create, am I appealing to the better nature of man?
Yeah, so that's an ethical side of it, for sure.
It is Tinder's fault. The last decade, Tinder has led us in dating. Globally.
Yeah, I agree.
They talk about centralized government. Dating is centralized. There are only a few big players in the globe. How Tinder decides to
Never
behave
thought of it like that.
influences the entire culture of the West.
I never thought of it like that. That's
Now, what we are saying is
fantastic point.
we will overtake this culture and we will decide and we will make it respectful and responsible. So ultimately, we underestimate, we think we're so special, we think we're so clever. We underestimate the impression brands have on the culture, have on our attitude towards our lives. I read a book called Why We Sleep, changed my life. I completely changed my nighttime routine. A book written by a stranger that I don't know.
It's beautifully said.
And it's no different to anything else. We just because it's a good thing, we think it's okay. We also do bad things by being influenced by other people.
I agree.
And that is Tinder. So ultimately, yes, is the user bad for succumbing? I can agree with you on that level. But ultimately, as a business leader myself, I'm looking to the guy who created Tinder. That he caused all of this. How does he sleep with himself at night? So ultimately, I think that is the reason why.
Is there any benefits you can think of from the dating app scene? Because the only one I can think of, I think, is giving chance to introverts to finally come out of their shell. That would be very because I think in social environments, in public, extroverts kind of always have the domination over introverts, especially, right? And I think dating apps has given platform to people to talk to other people, and I think that's one benefit I can say. But everything you say, I completely agree with. I never really thought of it, Tinder being a centralized form of dating, because it's kind of true. It's in, out, quick, and that's how we kind of treat each other this type of way now as a young population. That was a.
What I mean
really
centralized, actually, Riyadh, what I mean by centralized, I think what I'm trying to say is Tinder as a private corporation controls the relationship between the genders across the entire Western world. How they decide to move and pivot, what kind of features they try to create or culture that try. I'll give you an example. Recently, they've launched a feature which allows you to block family members.
Oh, I've seen that.
What it actually means is you can block your wife if you want to cheat on her. That's what they're actually doing. That's the actual dog whistle.
Hey, this episode's good, man.
That's actually what's going on.
Really
so now they have decided, because they've thought, oh, Ashley Madison, why don't we get in on that? So they're doing it under the guise of, you don't want your ex to know you're dating again, or you don't want to be faced with your ex. No, what they're actually doing is they're saying, while you're cheating on your missus or your husband, you can block them and we'll help you cheat on them. This is what they're doing. And now this feature could be made available overnight to every single country in the globe.
Yeah,
that's what I mean about centralized.
It's a home wrecking feature.
That's what I mean about centralization.
I understood.
As we know, I'm sure your politically science well averse. We don't want any amount of power to be centralized in the world.
No, never.
Because you get bad players.
Yeah, and then it kind of goes to the idea justice is determined by the strong, and if they're the ones who are in charge and they've got the strength, they'll determine what the justice of relationships.
Absolutely.
Are. And I think it's definitely a dangerous element. But I want to actually jump on your point. I think Tinder's actually not. It can home wreck relationships for sure, but I think it can destroy individuals personally too. Because if like I think love is a very intimate, beautiful thing. I'm a huge believer in love. I think it's a very real thing, and it's nice to hear someone like you speak about it with so much passion. Coming from a man as well, I'm sure people are like, oh my god, men can speak about love like this. Well, they exist. We're here for a reason, yeah. But Tinder is it's an antithesis to what love is. Love is slow, it's passionate, and there's some things that you can't replicate on a platform like eye contact, touch. Words of affirmation. You could do it on a text, but these real life qualities essentially are what fits into a relationship mechanic. And what I like about what you're doing is if you can emphasize emphasize relationship dynamics, you're kind of building already halfway there to what the eye contact and stuff like this can come involved.
And that's a very sophisticated way. Like one of the biggest, and I think people are really catching onto this concept, which we've known for over 10 years. I personally have known about this concept for 10 years. Attachment style, right? And attachment theory in a relationship. I think you're reading the book. Have you read the book recently?
No, but what will come up before this? Yeah. I've done an episode on the podcast doing the attachment. So that would be out before this episode.
Interestingly, we use that data.
It's nice to come
we
here
inform
again,
that the algorithm is informed by that. But even like on that really deep and spiritual level, but even on a mechanical level, the best example I can give, and I'm sorry it's geared more towards girls. We absolutely are geared towards both genders, but it's the best example I can give. I think maybe even guys will be a bit insulted by me saying that they don't care about this. I'm sure they do, but normally stereotype for women. Mm-hmm. Women like to know when they're about to date someone, at least past the age of 27, 26, is in how many years does he want to have kids and how many years does he want to get married. But look at the dichotomy of the situation. If she asks you that on the first date, technically it's fair that she asks you that. She just doesn't waste her time. Revealing. But if she asks you that question, you think she's weird, you think she's coming on too strong. So what she'd have to do, and he'd have to do if he was interested, he'd have to date you for maybe 3 or 4 months, and then eventually when it gets to a point where it becomes meaningful, then ask you, hold on, and then you don't align, you've wasted fucking 6 months. But we already account for that. We already control for that as a variable. I would not introduce you to someone, you would not be matched with someone that doesn't align in terms of timings of birth, childbirth, and marriage. And this is a very mechanical one, but we do also do the sophisticated stuff like the attachment style we were talking about before.
And I think also to add one more, what I like about your point is that even if a girl on the first date said to you, I want a relationship, I want babies, a guy could perceive that as a challenge. Yeah. Or he could say it's a challenge.
Okay.
And try to get what he wants while working around what she said in a certain way.
Sure.
And I think
in a sort of tricking sense.
I want something from her regardless.
I want it in 2 years as well.
Yeah, I want it in 2 years too. But essentially, you're reducing the deceitful element of it. Where if you put them two on a date, there's always a mutual agreement already there. And I think that's fantastic because it saves a lot of people that point I said earlier about emotional investments.
Yes.
Because it's long and it's boring. Yeah. So what I've noticed is that if I'm on a dating app for a while, I think everyone can relate to this, is that you'll use it, you're talking, you'll delete after a while. Because I think your emotional stores is depleted. You can't be bothered to get to know them. You'll delete it, you'll come back in 3 or 4 months, emotionally ready, and you get to re-know people again.
This brings us to a great point because I've seen men and women on social media say that I can't remember, there's a name for it where I think people want like a self-esteem boost or something, and they'll go on a dating app and they'll come off.
I agree with that though.
We're actually trying to solve this problem.
How so?
Actually, it's a secondary benefit of our success-based payment model. So we believe so much in our mechanism, we will only take payment when we've delivered value, which is a match. But so Tinder and the like, the average sort of you could pay for a dating app is like £60 every 2 or 3 months for any other dating app. With ours, you'll pay £10 per match, every match.
Oh, okay, I get what you're saying.
But the frequency with which you'll get matches from us can never be known.
So is it like you're valuing high quality instead of high volume?
Absolutely. That is our business model.
Yeah, I see that.
So whilst you may think, oh my God, like £10 for a match, I pay nothing for Tinder. Our matches of an infinite higher quality, so much more science and mechanics has gone into delivering that match, and that's the reason why. But also what I'm hoping this does, and I'll say this openly because we don't care, I'm hoping it prices out the idiots, prices out the charlatans who are only looking for a one-night stand. And I can confidently say, if you're not into a relationship, if you're looking for it, don't come on the app. If you're any type of this person who's not prepared to act honorably, we don't want you as a customer. Just don't come on the app.
Yeah. And I think that's nice because before, like, especially it's a really beautiful point about the Tinder centralization. I never thought of it like this. I'm going to do a bit of writing after this and think about that. Because it's true. On Tinder, everyone is in one market. You got the sharks and the fishers in there. You got everyone in there. So you got good people and bad people. But it sounds like now that you're trying to stretch the battlefield out a little bit. It's nice how that comes full circle a little bit, because you're offering a platform for serious people. So if you want seriousness, go to Last Love. If you want quickies and no jokes, go somewhere else. You know. So it's kind of is essentially an app for the
pure-hearted,
or the idealists.
Absolutely,
for sure.
Well, let me upset you even more. I'll upset you even more. You've heard of Hinge, of course.
Yeah, of course.
So Hinge is supposed to be the antidote to Tinder, right?
Yeah,
and it is, but there's still sharks on there, right?
Sure.
Hinge and Tinder are owned by the same company.
Is it?
Yes.
I didn't even know that.
It's called Match Group. It's $1 billion conglomerate. So you're telling me that the company that owns both of those is really going to push the boundaries? They've schooled the entire globe because they own the thing that's wrecking society and the thing that's supposed to fix it. Tell me a moment in history where that has led to good outcomes.
It created a hero out of its own villain.
Absolutely.
It created a hero and a villain.
And then they controlled the hero, which is not a real hero. It's a pseudo-hero. It's not really solving anything.
Yeah.
They're not really solving anything.
I do think it's quite clever with Hinge, though. I'm not sure if you've noticed this, but definitely I've noticed. That white background...
Yes.
Purity.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's the first thing I thought.
Yeah, I thought of that too. Every picture that comes up just looks so glowing, pure. Yeah. Like they, not to sound rude, some people look more better than they are. It gives you an elevation. And when I saw that, it's like, this is fishy going on, and everything's so spaced out. I'm thinking, it wants to be pure. I think
they have teams of psychologists, and you've got to think to yourself, they're not gathering any data on you. So what are they optimizing for? They're optimizing for how can we make this as much of a slot machine or a game. Do you remember Wonga? The company.
Oh, wow, that does ring a bell.
It was a payday loan company that used cartoons to sort of almost make light of taking a payday loan, make it very gentle and very playful.
Kiddie almost.
Essentially, they were closed down because of using those. I think they went bust, but they also closed down their marketing activities. The government was like, you're making light of a very serious financial product. And that's what dating apps do. It's all very shiny or coins, buy this coin and buy this extra chat and They're making it into a game and that's what they're using their psychologists for. We use our psychologists to optimize our matching mechanism. I don't care about making the app more efficient for you. I don't care. If you don't have, it takes about 11 to 15 minutes to sign up to the app, right, for us. But then you don't do anything. You don't do 90 minutes a day with us. So really, you're making a lot of time back by going with us. But I don't care. If you can't spend 15 minutes signing up, I don't want you as a user. And I'm proud to say it.
I'm just taking that in. It's interesting. So there is a question that's been on my mind for the last 10 minutes. I really want to ask you this. Where would you say the future of love is going?
Yeah. The future of love. I think I think someone has to take leadership of it. I look at nutrition. We've come a long way in public discourse, almost too much of a bad way. But there's a lot of positive conversation about meat diets, vegan-based diets in a way that we've never had before. And I think we're getting to that stage in love and relationships. We spoke about this before, actually, where it's you've had Fresh and Fit. Now, I think the culture is waiting for an antidote to that.
Oh, okay.
And now we're going to say...
a doctor of love, essentially.
Well, the thing is, I think everyone, and I'm very critical of everyone, and it's not... being able to identify what the problem is not intelligence. Doing that and providing a solution is real intelligence. And all of these dating relationship podcasts, all they've done is says, this is the problem, this is the problem, this is the problem. Fine. Give me the solution.
Yeah, and if you keep saying problems, you inspire fear.
Yes.
And solutions inspires hope. And essentially what we want to do. And love is one of the biggest signs of hope, I would say. I hope you will make my life better. Sure. You hope I make your life better. And in order to love a society, we need hope and ideals.
Yes.
But if we're spreading hate on, especially many podcasts do this, this is the culture. Men don't like women. Women are like this. Men are this. Are we not forgetting what love does? All it is hope. Let's hope and re-inspire that relationships can work. It is nutritious. There is a formula to this. It isn't just dumb luck. You bump into someone, the books drop, and then all of a sudden, hallelujah. No, it's a process. And so let me ask you a question now. Where does the word sacrifice come in for you?
Oh, I'm so glad you brought this up, actually. I was talking to my girlfriend. I was hoping to come up. If I can address the previous point, put a closure to that.
For sure.
So I think the society wants an antidote to all the craziness, Fresh and Fit and the like, right? And I think that's happening. From a culture perspective, I think, people are reading the attachment style book even more by Amir Levine. I think people are becoming knowledgeable now about how do we fix this problem. From a business perspective, in the venture capital market, we're seeing money flow towards relationship apps. My favorite, I can't remember what it's called now, but there's relationship apps. Essentially, it's an app. It's sort of, in a positive way, gamifies your relationship, like forces you to ask each other questions, comes up with little coaching snippets and stuff like that. So what I'm trying to say is, even as the business community, they're realizing there's a requirement for this product, and private equity money is going into these solutions in the tens of millions. So there is a change coming, and we're just sort of on the edge where we're going to start to see that spill in further.
In other words, there was a demand. Now there's time to supply.
Absolutely. Which, as you know, unfair as that sounds, there we are.
But it does sound unfair on the surface. But if we was to like break that egg open for 1 second, you would see that if the supply is good, right, and the demand would change and do good for society, then what's the problem with getting a bit of profit on the side for it? I think you should be paid as like for doing good work. I think we have a sour taste in our mouth when people get profit for ill work. So it's nice to see society. It's nice to see people like yourself or I'm trying to at least fix the culture a little bit. And I think this is a way of giving back. But I feel like the word business kind of sometimes blocks the idea of giving back. You know, so because you're benefiting off of it. Not like, what do you want me to do? Just to starve or something? You know. But I think. I love this idea you're going on, but I want you to allude to that point of sacrifice. How does that word play into love and relationship mechanics?
What a beautiful topic. I've got many levels to this.
Let's go.
The way I introduced this topic is, the thing I hate to hear men say is, what do you do for us? If someone came here in this dark alley, I'd give my life for you. I hear this a lot. I'm sure you have before as well on these Manosphere podcasts.
Yeah, for sure.
And I have this concept called the equal and opposite concepts. My belief, and then if you meditated hard enough, you'll realize this: men and women are equal in their opposition. We're not equal. We're 10 and 2. We're you know, I'm trying to work out what the clock is. We're 3 and 9, right?
Yeah.
So for everything they have, we have something else. Now, it is true that it is incumbent on us to give our lives for our partners, and it's something that we feel very good about, right? It's very natural. I know you've read Plato's Symposium, and he mentions it in the Symposium. Come on, shake my hand.
We was on the same frequency there, you know?
I read it in the Symposium. When I read it in the Symposium, I spoke to my girlfriend and I said, look at the beauty of this.
Yeah. You're talking about Aristophanes' story, isn't
Absolutely.
it? I think the story was that women and men were once one person.
Yes.
They had loads of arms and loads of legs. If there's an image you want to imagine, think about Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man. Just imagine that. And it was no such thing as man and woman. It was just one. And then the gods got really feared because they were really powerful. But all these humans, and what made them powerful was that they were one. They were together. And in the middle, they would have sex all the time, basically. So Zeus split them in half. So basically split their souls in half. And men and women there, and they spread them all over the globe. In other words, the other half is always trying to look for the other half. That's where you get the idea of the soulmate. That we're all originally split at birth, split at one point, and we're trying to find the other extension of ourselves. And it's so beautiful we bring that up because I'm so passionate about that power, that extract, because it's so beautifully written, and it's a joke. He's playing around, but there's a lot of truth in that. That when you do meet the next person that you love, it's so empowering. You feel stronger, you know.
But there's more to it in the modern day. So let's say, I'll accept, if I'm going to be facetious, 9 out of 10 of the men that I see, you know, you couldn't hurt a fly, let alone throw down when you're trying to protect your woman. So let's just bring some reality to the situation. I know. Come on, let's calm down firstly. But let's just say you do. What is the equal and opposite for women? Because there is something. Where do women still and are prepared to die for men? Childbirth.
I was thinking that.
And what's more is women are still doing it now. We don't have the privilege of dying for our partners, but women every single day across the globe, millions of them are prepared to give their lives to give birth to our children. And that is just as honourable, if not more honourable. So this nonsense about men die for women still die for us, and they continue to do so.
That's beautifully said. I completely agree with that. And childbirth is, I think, obviously I'm not a woman, but my mum always said to me, when I went into childbirth, I was always pondering on the idea maybe I could die at childbirth. She goes, but it was a risk that I was absolutely willing to take in order to give life. And I think childbirth actually resembles a perfect aspect of love. Like the first 9 months is tough. It hurts. It's painful. Like you're going to feel aches and stuff like this. But you hope. And then when you finally have a child and you finally conceive love of your partner for the first 9 months, it's so beautiful, that feeling, and very powerful, and it can change your life for sure. But I think sacrifice in the aspect of love, I would say, is that you have to, there's certain things we like as individuals, we desire. I think it's good to sacrifice who we are for who we could become, thanks to our partner's help instead of our own, you know? And I think that brings courage too, because sacrifice is not easy. You have to kind of abandon something, and abandonment takes courage too.
And another point on the childbirth, if I may,
No, of course,
is death is not always physical. It can also be psychological and spiritual.
shedding your skin.
1 in 4 of all childbirths end in miscarriage. So
Shame.
even if your missus does not die at birth, my own mother miscarried.
Oh wow.
And I guarantee you that one of the 5 women you know who has tried to have more than one child will have likely miscarried.
And
I know women,
people, to be
obviously that makes the men sad. I'm not taking anything away from the husbands, but for a woman to leave a miscarried baby, like lose a miscarried baby, that does something to the mind that we can never understand.
fair. Of course, 100%, I agree. It's
And
a
then
limitation of us.
The final point on sacrifice, if I may, and this isn't connected to relationships or dating or
Yeah, of
anything,
course, I'd love
I'm
to
sure
hear.
we could circle back to. This is my personal opinion.
Yeah, please.
I've accepted the disposable nature of man, and I love it.
Expand on that.
I enjoy it. This idea that we could go to war or whatever, my life has to be put on the line, I have to fight the beasts. I don't care. It makes me feel good, and I don't care. I don't feel down about it. I'm not upset about it. I love it. And if anything, I make myself a weapon. So if that day does come, then maybe I win that war.
I think that is very true. I think as men nowadays, we live in a privileged time where we don't have to think about World War One, World War Two, the trenches going off. I think now the ultimate question for men is how can we move past that and keep traditional masculinity, but not have the incitement of war in the back of our head? Because I think that is an extreme men do jump to. But however, to counter that maybe, I always say the biggest compliment I can ever give to a woman is this. And tell me, I want to see your interpretation of what I mean by this. I always say, if I was to go to war tomorrow, I'd want you to have my baby. What does that mean to you? Why is that such a strong compliment? And how do you think that respects women?
I guess the memory of you, right? To continue your legacy, essentially.
And trusting you of all people
Yeah.
to do that for me.
Absolutely.
I think is a perfect example of looking deeper than your character. It's something soulful about you, you know? That I could go off and die, but I want you to extend my legacy because you are perfect for that.
Yeah.
You as a woman, I could see you as a mother, essentially. If you say to a woman, you could, I have a feeling you could be a great mother.
Yeah.
I think that is a compliment that speaks to many different things.
Yeah.
And I think secretly men are all looking for a wife that is a good mother. I think that's a borderline thing. Like, we don't discuss as much as in my generation, of course.
I think you're giving people too much credit.
Oh, you think so?
I think you're absolutely right that is probably the only way one should execute. Because keep in mind, having a relationship is not for you; it's for everybody else.
Precisely. I agree.
It's not for you. Maybe the first 6 months or years for you. After that, you're building a community. You're building the start of an entire community,
Or
an
an
entire
empire.
bloodline, right?
Oh,
That's what you're building.
Perfectly said.
So how much you get along is less important than how much good value can you do in the world. Through kids and then nieces and nephews and uncles and aunties, extended family. That's all that matters. But if I may very quickly reverse it back, because I want to take a jibe at the world of podcasting.
Oh yeah, for sure.
With the final point I'd say on this, and then we'll bring it back, about this whole... I don't want to take shots at this person. I don't want to make it a personal thing. But there's a specific individual that talks a lot about... women shouldn't be allowed to vote because they don't go to war, right? Men also don't vote to go to war. That's not how it works. We don't have referendums of war. And how this statement gets picked up by the discourse is beyond me. Guys, just rub like a few brain cells together. We also don't get to vote whether we go to war or not. So it's a redundant argument.
Of course.
But let's go back to the main points.
Just I've got, every time you say something, I always think of something else, because what you say is very... It's just I like your ideas, but when people say such bizarre comments like that, it's basically people who have a lack of understanding of history and its elements. And I read something so beautiful. It said, "Do you know what stupidity is?" And then I was reading it, and it said, "Stupidity is this: everything has a cause and effect. It's people who see the effects and try to guess the cause as best as possible. So people see the effects of women not going to war. They don't understand the cause. They don't want to research. They just have a pop-hole guess to see what the cause to the effects are. We call that stupidity. True understanding is when you can see the effects and you can link it to its real causes. And how do you get to the real causes? Just do some research.
Absolutely.
Learn. Don't go on a podcast and spit rubbish.
Women did go to war as well. Like they helped. They helped in the warehouses, creating all the bullets and stuff. And there were women at war as well. Like women were plenty involved in war. So relax. Is my point.
Yeah, 100%. But I want to ask you a question. I see your slogan. I want you to read it out and kind of explain why. Why does that slogan ring true to you?
We're most alive when we're in love, and it's a very. I mean, it can mean anything. I know, because I read it like 5 minutes ago. I'm thinking in my head, back of my head here, I was thinking like that's the best thing I can give you is, have you ever been to the supermarket with your partner and been to the supermarket without your partner? There's some magic that cannot be described. I don't know what it is. Have you ever been to like IKEA with your partner
it's the best,
and been IKEA alone? Like no one can describe that, you know? Like cooking. If you cook for yourself and when your partner get together, put some music on,
it's different.
And you normally making food is something you do that you can do something else with. Maybe watch your favorite program. Well, in a relationship, making food together is the activity. Yeah. That is what that means. And sometimes in that moment, you don't want the activity to actually end. Absolutely. You kind of get sad when the food's about to be dished and you sit down because it's an interaction. I think it relates to something, again, back to Plato's Symposium of Love. One of the characters, one of the people speaking saying, you must find a friend and a partner first more than anything. And it relates perfectly back to Last Love because if you're looking for a relationship mechanics, in other words, friendship, how best can we be good friends? And when you're doing activities with your boys, sometimes you say to each other, oh, I wish I had a girl I could do stuff like this with. What does that really mean on the surface? I want a friend first. Because because at the end of the day, young people, we're very superficial end of the day. And that's no problem. That's just a symptom of youth, I would argue. We like beautiful aesthetically things and we don't have the rationality to kind of subdue our aesthetic desires. So we fall in a trap for it. So if you go into a relationship, say the Tinder idea of lust, and you value beauty and superficiality, well, that's going to fade over time. In other words, if you embed your love in superficiality and it fades, so will your love. But if you embed your love in someone who's in the soul, in a friendship, in a best friendship, and that doesn't fade, essentially. That's a connection forever. So when the beauty fades off, you've got something tangible and solid underneath. So I think it's so important that if you're going to use dating apps, there's nothing wrong with using them. We're in the modern day. I don't think as people we should feel guilty for having privileges nowadays because 30 years ago, they couldn't have done this. If you said this 30 years ago, they would have wanted this. So I think maybe we're a bit fatigued of our own success, essentially. But find a friend and your partner first. And apps like this allow you to do that, I would say. So yeah, so basically, how long would you say you've been with your wife, if you don't mind asking, or a girlfriend? It's coming on to 3 years now. Okay, and what would you say? How would you describe the first year and the last year? Most recent year. Yeah, most recent year was the first year. First year was chaos. Okay, and so it should be. So it should be. You will meet chaos in your relationship. You decide when you want to meet it. Do you want to decide the year that you meet the chaos, the year that you start to challenge each other to negotiate? Because challenging is you're just negotiating. When things happen in your relationship, you can call it friction, growth, negotiation. That is better words to use than arguing. Now, if you're arguing about the same things, often that is bad. But if you're often arguing about new things all the time, that is needed. Yeah, because you're traveling in uncharted territory and you're basically placing the flags and boundaries, essentially. And naturally, because of the way I am, I'm just like, let's negotiate it now because I'm a man of my word. Let's try to negotiate as much as we can and then just go forward. And that can be really challenging. For sure. So the first year was made up a lot of arguing. And what I mean by that is negotiating. And now we're very close to like almost continuous peace. That's peace is the right word. Yeah, I think so. So would you say in your relationship, have you applied what you've learned in your relationship directly to what you've produced in your art? Oh, I mean your app. Sorry, not. Well, the way I approached my relationship was informed by science. Okay. So in that way, the science informs the dating app. My personal experience does not. But the science was already used to lead in my relationship. Okay. Yeah. I only lead with the science in my relationship. That's really interesting because
I'm so on. This is where we might disagree a bit. And this is good because I'm on the fence of. I don't like to look at love scientifically. I like to look at it, as I said probably earlier, artistically. And how would you differentiate the two?
The art is left to whatever science can explain.
I like you, man.
And the reason why is because when I'm approaching my partner, it's very useful. It's handy for me to say, hey, you know, I almost said a name. That's not fair. You know, girlfriend, like, oh, I read this thing. I think it'd be good for us. Should we try it? Let's try it. And then maybe a situation comes, and I apologies, I can't provide an example because I think it would be unfair to do so. A situation will come where there's no basis for science. It's just how I feel.
Oh, yeah, transcendent, essentially.
Yeah. And if anything, in those moments tend to be unfair. I'll ask for something that's unfair that I cannot justify. And then I have to surrender myself and say, I don't know why I need this thing, but I'd like this thing.
Oh, for sure. I think
and then you have to draw on like the poets.
Yeah, and you know what's really interesting? I still think in our modern day society we are very run. I think our love and relationships are still definitely run by narratives. And I think the one thing that has always held dating apps back, I would say, is that they don't fit into the ideal narratives of wanting to meet someone. Because one thing I used to love growing up as a kid and saying to my mum is, how did you meet dad? You know what I'm trying to say? She goes, yeah, I was in the club and your dad came over. And I always say, I love history so much. Napoleon, Caesar and all these lot. Time travel to anywhere in history, I'll just go to the night my mum and dad met. I love to sit there for a drink and just watch them approach each other, yeah? But, so do you think nowadays in the culture we must accept that we're going to maybe not meet each other in real life anymore? And is there a way we have to make it acceptable to meet each other on digital platforms?
Absolutely. So there's a statistic: 50% of guys have never approached a woman in real life.
Oh, what was the statistic, sorry?
50% of men
Seriously?
have never approached a woman in real life. Damn. And yes, we do have to accept the fact that we will be meeting online. But I have to recycle some knowledge from a gentleman called Matthew Hussey.
Cool.
He said that, and I agree with this. I think. Let me explain the whole thing before we jump to conclusions. Women should take more leadership in when they meet their partners. And what that means is there's the whole sort of man, come and ask for a woman on a date or something. But what Matthew Hussey says is the real story is a woman drops her handkerchief first. And then man picks up handkerchief and goes, hey, you dropped your handkerchief.
That's a very beautiful analogy.
The woman has always, throughout history, started the interaction. So women are like, oh, no one ever talks to me. Like, it's even more incumbent on you, more necessary, unfortunately. But it's not unfortunate. I don't want to sound bad. But we are living in very, gendered, divisive times.
Oh, for sure.
And it's more incumbent on you. I'm sorry, I don't know what words to use, but I'm just going to speak off the cuff. It is incumbent on girls to make the guys that they want to sort of introduce themselves or ask them on dates, to let them know that is a possibility for them, right? You need to do some sort of modern day handkerchief drop.
Yeah, that reminds me straight out of Othello by Shakespeare, where Desdemona drops a handkerchief and Iago picks it up and says to Cassio, give it to her. And it's just stroking image. But I think the reason why we're very divisive nowadays, I think we live in a culture, a very suspicious culture of everything. Yeah. Power, art, the past, the future, everything is under the lens of suspicion. And is a great example of we're losing our ideals as a society. So how can we love each other and produce love if there's no ideals? Because at the end of the day, love is an ideal. If we're under the lens of suspicion all the time, then ideals can't be created out of suspicion. Because at every level you get, you always say, should we go to the next one? No, we need to build a society. So I think we need to start spreading the message not to be idealistic. Try to be idealistic at least. Idealistic. Because them thoughts are so refreshing, Find the good in a partner. I think one of the best things I do, so if I'm on a date with a girl, this is the question I ask her all the time. Because to me, it's the best question to unlock Pandora's box, okay? I would ask her, what is an ideal man to you? If she, by her answer, you can see what she values, what she likes, what she doesn't like. But I tell you something, an answer is good because it means she can actually imagine something.
Or she has already tried to imagine it.
Yeah. But if she can't give me an answer of what an ideal man is, how could you ever see the good in me? If you can't even think of what a good man is, how are you ever going to recognize the good qualities in myself, And again, it relates quite well to Last Love. If you're going to do relationship mechanics, and how that works, then you can, if the science is saying this is the best ways, then you can imaginatively apply that to your own way of living. I can imagine a good man based on these mechanics, essentially. So I think it perfectly comes full circle that we need to inspire women and men. I say to say to guys nowadays, what's your ideal woman? Big bum, big boobs, big lip. Wait, so character, personality, what would you like?
Yeah, it's really unfortunate.
Housewife? I'm thinking.
Oh gosh.
I'm thinking you've never thought about this once yet. It means, how are you going to recognize good in a girl? So there is a lot of good women out there. Yeah.
It gets worse. Another reason why men, I'm just going to talk about men because we'll just provide balance.
Precisely.
The reason why they're titties and arse and can't say what their ideal woman is probably also because they've never met a woman to even start discerning what would be good and what would be bad. They've never really had a deep and meaningful relationship with anyone in the opposite sex to know what is the range, what's even out there outside of what I'm seeing on porn.
Oh my god, I was literally about to ask you, how much do you think porn has ruined dating?
Insofar as dating, I don't know. I think it helps dating. People want to live out their nonsense that they've seen on porn.
That's a fair one.
But it affects long-term relationships because they need their partner to be this porn actress, and they think sex is like that. Sex is, I can't tell you how much complete opposite sex is. Sex is about going deep, not wide. Sex is about the deeper connection you have with your missus, your sex gets better as a product of that. Sex in itself, you shouldn't focus on sex. When you're in a relationship, the first thing to go bad when your relationship isn't good is the sex. That's how you know. That is the barometer of how your sex. When your sex goes bad, forget about making the sex better. Come back to the relationship. Partner, what's wrong?
Yeah.
Not what's wrong, we're not having good sex. Hey, let's check in. How are you doing? What's going on in your life? What's going on in your work? How are you feeling towards us? How's your mental health?
I completely agree, because sex, end of the day, is an intimate, instinctual relationship.
But it's a product of the relationship.
Yeah, no, exactly. Because when you're having sex, it's two instincts meeting, the core instincts of humanity inside. So if that's not right, your instincts will naturally tell you is not right somewhere else. I think you perfectly hit that nail on the head.
If I may, Riyad, this brings us on to a great segue of something I'd like to challenge you about.
Oh, precisely, let's go.
I'd like to talk to you about masculinity and femininity. How should I approach this conversation with you? The discourse is wrong about masculinity and femininity. It is optimal. It is necessary. It is obligatory for women to manifest masculinity, just as much as it is for a man to be able to manifest femininity. Now, it is each of ours challenge to make sure, as a man, you need to be able to, and it's more obvious for a man, because when a woman goes through a cycle, she requires you to be a different way at different parts of her cycle. And that's okay, and that's beautiful, and we welcome that, and so should you. It's a beautiful thing. But in the same way, who are women to be so privileged that they can sit back and just be feminine? I disagree with you on this point. It's obligatory. It is necessary for long-term relationship success for a woman and a man, but we'll just focus on women now, to manifest masculinity. Over a long enough time horizon in a relationship, things will go wrong. And they won't go wrong for a day. They might go wrong for 6 months or a year. For whatever reason, you guys just may not take to childbirth or child rearing, or a death in your family, or redundancy, whatever. And in those moments, in those stages, it's not just moments. These moments can last 6 months in struggle in your relationship, financial issues, they may last years. And in those moments, the thing that keeps you together is duty. And duty, in the absence of love and romance, is notoriously a masculine trait. And if a woman, and they aren't able to because they're not being encouraged, and all men think they're doing the right thing by saying they just want fully feminine women, that's wrong. It's women to be encouraged just to be that way. So when the going gets tough, they leave, because that's femininity. Femininity is, I need to survive so the civilization continues. Masculinity is, okay, this is a really hard time. This guy's good. We need to stay steadfast with this and just weather the storm. That is masculinity. But the people who are propagating only femininity of women have no idea how a relationship works. They've never been in a meaningful relationship, and they're just recycling nonsense like parrots.
So essentially, what I tried to maybe put together our argument is that women, femininity is by duty should become somewhat masculine or learn to become masculine.
Women should have masculinity in their back pocket to
I
draw to when they need to.
I know, I completely agree, and I think it's the same vice versa with the
For
men.
femininity, yes.
Yeah, but I think this is the video I spoke about when I said the modern woman is very masculine in the sense that her femininity feels a bit off.
And the reason why I was to challenge you about that because I feel like men are very fickle. So as soon as a woman goes to a bit of masculinity, they're like, oh no, something's wrong with her. This is because we've created this psychology where as soon as she promotes or manifests any masculinity, all of a sudden, like, I can't be attracted to you. But we need to change that because that's the way they should be. They should be. It's good that they manifest that. I've said on other podcasts, if you meet a girl, because being able to do that as a woman, being able to rightfully, without compromising your own masculinity, exhibit femininity is the gold dust for girls. And that's really hard to negotiate with yourself and execute. So imagine when you found someone, a woman that can do that. That is a jackpot, boys. You've hit the jackpot. Now it's better, it's easier to negotiate with your missus that she's being too masculine than she's not being masculine at all.
Okay, so
I'm seeing the juices flowing in your mind now.
So I'll give you my response to
Sure.
that, which I think is a fair criticism to say, and I would by no means say I'm a person who would say a woman should become strictly feminine and a man be strictly masculine, because I think that is there's a lot of tools as a man you can use about femininity, and they can help you and in social relationships too. And if you understand the female psychology, you need to have feminine traits yourself. You know, you have to dance with the music they're playing with, essentially. But this is my point about the modern and masculine women, and it's nice that you brought this up because it allows me to expound on the point, because a lot of people did comment on that video. My point is this: masculinity is very associated with invulnerability. For sure. It's about strength, pride, and power. And I would say women nowadays, especially thanks to the feminist movement over the last X or so years, they view man and women relationships through the lens of power. Okay? And in order to have power over someone, you have to have a level of invulnerability. You can't look vulnerable as per se. So that's why I think male friendship groups can sometimes be a bit more tense, because we're not as vulnerable, you know? And women is associated with vulnerability, and not in the sense of being weak. Vulnerable to the point where they allow... It's kind of the point you made earlier when you drop the handkerchief. What does that mean? Give the handkerchief back. So for a man to seduce a woman in the street or approach a woman, he must feel at some level of vulnerability, not this stush masculine energy to push off, because that's how you not find potential relationships and romances in the modern day society. And the second thing is, one of my favorite things is Cupid. And Cupid has a bow and arrow. And a lot of people don't know why Cupid has a bow and arrow. He shoots you to use to fall in love. But do you understand why he uses a bow and arrow? It's because it makes you vulnerable. That is all. If you think you're strong and prideful and uptight, you're better off with anyone, how can you fall in love? How? You don't need love. Love is about sacrificing something about you to develop something together. And you need a level of vulnerability there. So if I see a lot of these young... Not the middle ages. I can't speak to middle age because I'm not that age, and they're not the women I'm really associating with. It's definitely my generation, so 23, younger or older. A lot of women find power in being invulnerable, power in not giving away themselves, even in a romantic conversation, giving their number out. So essentially what I'm trying to say, it feels off because they complain about not men coming up to them, talking to them, being respectful, but they're get away from me. So I'm trying to say, in order to receive love, you have to be vulnerable, you know? And women want to love. I feel like women are the most... like I said earlier, and what Socrates says, he learned love from a woman. I don't think love can exist without women. So, and if they're the ones that are giving it, who are we going to get it from, you know? Because I don't think as men, we can't create love for ourselves. So I would say that's my natural rebuttal for now.
Your rebuttal is in the annal of dating. I'll say that my judgment was in the annal of relationships. So if the viewers can separate the argument of women and masculine and femininity in dating, it absolutely needs to exist in relationships. But in terms of the annal of dating, two responses. Sort of fair. I can understand your point. The question is why? Why are they like that? Like, I think women's masculine traits that are perhaps a barrier to them being approached by men are justified.
I agree.
Even I could go further in saying women's masculinity in relationships, with all the decadence and debauchery, even in dating and infidelity, it's justified.
I agree. There is definitely, not definitely, 1000%. I think all men have seen as dog men out doing doggish things, for sure. But the most frustrating thing is that me as a man, I get penalized for his behavior, you know? And that's the only frustrating thing. It's kind of like, I don't want to be, it's kind of like in the classroom when one student messes up or the whole classroom gets in trouble in that kind of way. And understand that's a responsibility. So I think Jordan Peterson said something amazing. He said, if you as a man are going to live, you have to assume you're the last man alive who has all the best traits of men. And I can't say to you right now, this is what men should be, this is what men should do. We should all, me and you, understand what gives value to men, what a good man is, and be that. Simple as that, you know? It's not about telling people how to be. Just act and they'll follow. I promise you. But I feel sorry for... But then again, it's just so multi-layered, this kind of argument.
Too
There's
complex,
so many elements I could dive into, because one of the reasons I want to be a school teacher, and I love it so much, because I want to show the little girls in my classroom what a good man is. Respectable and polite. I can show them and explain to them what a good man is. You know what I'm trying to say? So they can say at least once in their life, if they had a bad dad, bad uncles, bad brothers, bad friends, that one teacher was a good man. So if I could be a good example of a good man to my students, then there's hope that they might have hope to meet other good men out there.
This is a remarkable point you've made, and I've heard you make this point before about you said something about you start being the father of your child as soon as you turn 18 or something, which is beautiful. And the fact that to the single guys out there, like, it's rich me saying it. I know there's a challenge, and you said this beautiful thing. I was talking to my girlfriend about it actually. We were at lunch, and you said that we've got to convince them we're not a beast first, right?
Yeah. In order for a woman to take us serious, we have to convince her we're not a beast first.
And to the point, like, guys, I get it. I live in the real world. I get that. Firstly, accept you're a beast. Don't make it. I just don't feel bad about it. It's okay. We all are. We're your brethren. We feel the same.
Yeah, as Nietzsche would say, don't feel guilty for having strong traits, because that's what the herd do.
Fine, they think we're beasts. Don't complain about it. Okay, what do you need to do to, like, overcome that if you want to overcome it? But there is, what do I want to say here? Like, I get how tough it is, like, meeting girls and stuff and dating, like, cold outreach. But there is one thing I wanted to say on this subject is, like, when guys see, like, the mean jocks making the girls all miserable.
High School Musical vibes,
and they're like, oh, do you know what I'll do? I'll just swoop in and be nice and soft. That is not the solution. It is not about either or. Women need you to be both, but just a good version of it. The tyrant, the qualities the tyrant has are the same qualities the hero has. They've just used them for different purposes.
Wow,
that is what you need to be. Exactly the same characteristics.
That's beautifully said.
So it's not you being this soft person and think that's the antidote to the girl falling in love. That's not. You have to have the exact same characteristics, personality traits as the tyrant, and all tyrants have had the same characteristics as all heroes who have ever existed, and it's just been a change of perspective.
I agree.
That's who you want to be. So if you want to replace the jock, the mean one that's getting all the girls, be him, but be more than him.
Yeah, it's interesting, because in my own life, hearing you say that, in my own life, I've always treated how the success rate I have with women is a reflection of who I am at the time. So if my success rate with women are low, it's because there's something wrong with me, not something wrong with them. For example, if I can't hold conversation, I'm struggling. That's not their fault, because they'll be giving you the opportunities. And in the game of seduction, and I hate to admit it, but that's one of my favorite books, Art of Seduction by Robert Greene. Only reason because it is such a fundamental element of human nature. Seduction, not in a sexual energy wise. Seduce, to impose your character upon them is what I think seduction is. And so if it's not working, cultivate yourself is the best example. Women, treat your success rate of women as a mirror of who you are, I would say. If you're, but then again, you're right. What you said, decadence can come in. Oh, there's just so many. My mind is going all over because there's so many extremes to avoid. But you know,
another thing following on from that, like the concept of the alpha male has been debunked by the same person who introduced the idea. So the alpha male thing was based on a wolf pack, and when you observe wolf packs, there's a different alpha for each section. So there's actually more than one alpha, and every alpha wolf has its own responsibility. And with that in mind, there is no obvious blueprint for alpha. Coffeezilla is an alpha male. Dr. Disrespect is an alpha male. Elon Musk is an alpha male, but Joe Rogan is an alpha male. Jocko Willink is the only alpha male on the internet. He is the only guy who should aspire to be Jocko Willink. But all of these people...
And David Goggins.
And David Goggins. But all of these people are alphas in their own annal. You can be an alpha at Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, no, you're right.
So don't feel like you have to be some archetype. The women from that community will recognize you as valuable, and you will get a relationship with someone you should be in a relationship with.
Yeah, I think, just to maybe, it's similar to your point, but it's one thing I think I want to raise here as well, is that having one is actually, I see this famous thing, I used to say it all the time when I was young, having 7 girls is better than having one, because one is too close to none. There's a thing Mayweather said. But I think this is false. Only reason because I'm sure you can allude to this, someone who's been in long-term relationships a lot of the time. And it does tie in, braids in with your last point beautifully, is that when you have a one woman there and you love her and you're with her, or vice versa with him, whatever, they are a foundational rock essentially. As men, as women, as humans, we self-doubt, we have anxieties, we fear, we pick apart. Every day feels like a new day sometimes. Every month can feel like a new challenge or testament. But when you have someone there that you love and they're strong and their groundwork, it keeps you grounded. Okay, I feel these certain things about me, but I know they love me. So therefore, I can kind of ignore these worries because they see through me. No, they see above that. Therefore, I must assume the same as my partner does. So I think it's much more valuable to have one partner in your life than many.
Monogamous married men make more money than single men.
Can you imagine?
They live longer. They're less prone to certain diseases.
I didn't even know that.
So the higher level of education that your partner has, the longer the man lives. So there's numerous benefits to being in a long-term relationship.
That's so wild to me, you know.
In a polygynous relationship, the wife herself reports low relationship satisfaction.
And what is a polygynous relationship?
It's when the man is able to sleep around, but the woman is not.
So is that open relate? Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm not talking about polyamory.
Oh, yeah.
But polygyny.
So she has.
This is often what's peddled on social media, where like you can't cheat, but I can, right?
Yeah.
Firstly, polygyny is when you're married to all of them, not when you're sleeping around. You're just a degenerate if you're doing that.
Yeah, for sure.
So we have the studies out of West and Central Africa because it's practiced there. Polygyny is practiced not just religiously, but tribal as well, which essentially could be a religion. So sorry if I'm offending anyone there. But what we see is low satisfaction, depression, anxiety amongst the women. They're bullied by their husband, one husband, and the other wives. And the daughters of the mothers who are in polygynous relationships, they report this like disconnection from their body, depressed and anxiety, seeing their mother struggle and have lower satisfaction. So there are awful outcomes for polygyny.
Oh my goodness.
One thing I wanted to get on, if I may,
yeah, for sure,
is marriage and divorce, because I think, like we've said before, because of this like dog whistling and this just like uneducated statistical like reporting, it's making people feel very disillusioned about marriage.
Oh yeah,
but it's actually nowhere near as bad as people are making out. So on average, divorce statistics, average rate of divorce right now is about 37, between 40 and 37, right?
Okay.
On average, 37 to 40% of marriages end in divorce. But of that 40 that end in divorce, let's say 37, half of those regret the divorce. Of the half that regret,
really interesting actually.
The half, if you pass the data, it tells a completely different story.
That's
right?
Nice.
Of the 40 that divorce, half of those regret. Of the half that regret, 21% try again, and those 21% always go on to be successful. But
because they recognize the value of the marriage, or they miss it.
Well, if you've done something and you think you made the wrong decision, you go again, you're more likely to try harder,
natural,
right?
Yeah, you're right.
So in real terms, average divorce in real terms is more like at 35%. Now, if you accept a society that nothing can be 100%, you've got a 65 to 70% chance that you're going to be successful in doing anything. They're good odds.
Yeah,
and that's an average. Now, let's pass the data even further. What's the divorce rate for first-time marriages? 22%.
That's not bad.
That's good. Not bad.
Not bad at all.
Riyadh, we accept it can't be 100%.
Yeah, that's not bad.
So what would we allow? Let's say you'd allow 90%, right?
Yeah.
You're telling me you would accept a 10%, right? You're paying a 12% premium.
Literally.
They're good fucking numbers. Sorry for swearing. They're good numbers. To say that your marriage you've got a 22% chance of your marriage ending, that is a good number.
Yeah.
If you accept it can't be 100, and you'd say you'd give it 10%, so you're paying a 12% premium.
You know what? I'm so nice to talk about marriage because I'm such an advocate of marriage, and I hate when I hear young people. I guess I can give like a my generation perspective on this. We think marriage is pointless, is expensive. It's just a contract with your names on it. No, don't think of it so logically and rationally. Think about it idealistically and beautifully. You know, it's a celebration. One day out of your whole entire life. Hopefully one day, you know, not 7 marriages, but 1. Even if it's 2 or 3, more for you, lucky you. You get to celebrate the idea of love. Like, it's such a beautiful ritual of celebrating love. And I don't think people understand how powerful that really is for humanity. For centuries, for thousands of years, we've celebrated love. Me and you are both in love. We're going to celebrate this day. It doesn't matter contract. Fuck the contract. The contract's a part of the celebration, you know? And I would love to see young people want to get married. This is so funny. Someone yesterday said to me, have you got a girl yet? I was like, no. He's a really good friend. He's in his 50s. He's like a mentor growing up to me. He's like, minute you find a good woman, you like her, marry her. And he goes, I bet that's advice you haven't heard ever in your life. I was like, no, it isn't. He goes, see, generational difference. When I was your age, I used to get that advice all the time. So he goes, marriage is a skill. And your statistics perfectly embody that. And how would you, though, comment on your app in its promotion of marriage? Is that the goal you hope your dates go on?
Just to make it easier for people to understand who we are, we call ourselves a dating app, but we're only a relationship app. Like, if you're not interested in a relationship, please, I'm begging you. I don't want your money. I don't want you as a user. Just don't come to the app. If you're not willing to get into a relationship if you meet someone within the next year, then we're not for you. Like, maybe go to one of the other apps. Interesting, you'll see at the bottom of our website, we actually link you back to Tinder, Bumble, and Hinge.
Yeah.
We're not worried about you not being a part of our service.
I did see that, you know.
We're not worried about being. We're trying to find a way for you people not to be on the app more than anything. I saw that and
I was so confused by that, you know. I was thinking, I saw Hinge, Tinder, and Bumble.
We're not bothered.
I was like, I was showing my mom the website, and she was like, "Why is that then?" I'm thinking, this guy really only wants serious people.
We do, yeah. I mean, I'll pay you to come off the app. If I find out you're on the app and you don't want a serious relationship, I'll pay you never to come back.
But time is running out, unfortunately, man. I think this is a conversation that can easily last another 2 hours.
It could.
But before I want to go, I want you to do 2 things. I want you to say one more message about Last Love, one more thing you think that needs to be a dagger in the heart for the viewers. And secondly, what's a message you would say to your 13-year-old version of yourself if you had to say to him about love?
Sure. About love?
Yeah.
Oh, you've gone very specific for me there.
Of course.
Okay,
sure. T-shirt, man.
The final message is like, whatever you may think of me or my views, is we have built the best place for you to have a meaningful relationship. And we will only ever optimize for you having a great relationship. And that's it, really. There's no better place for you to come where you can have the best chance of finding someone to have a meaningful relationship with. And we're happy to receive you. We'll be happy to have anyone that's willing to have a good relationship. And we really want to cause real big and meaningful change in the world. Hopefully for the next decade, we can change all the mess that Tinder has created. What would I say to my... I was actually talking to my girlfriend about this because I was like, you were going to ask this question. I was like, what do you think I should say? What would I say to my 13-year-old self about love? It's interesting because like I'm lucky enough to have lived largely, I've lived life on my own terms for a very long time. So I have very little regrets actually in life. If I did, I could only blame myself.
Wow. Responsibility, essentially.
I know, right? So what would I say to my 13-year-old self about love? What I'd wished I'd realised sooner is I've
got the timer.
It's a tough one.
It's very tough. I would say, first of all, to my one, don't try and find yourself in other women. Enjoy the art that they are, Don't look at women in specifics. Don't look at them for their specific sets, their bums, their boobs, what they like, what they don't like. Look at her as a whole. In art, to appreciate a true piece of artwork, you need to look at it as a whole, You can't really analyze a film by its scenes. You need to judge the film by its whole togetherness, you know? So if you're going to look at the Mona Lisa, you don't focus on her nose or her smile. In order to appreciate, you have to look at it as a whole. So I would say to my 13-year-old self, if you're going to meet a partner and find one, look at her as a whole, assess her together. How is she on harmony? How does her physical harmonize with her internal, you know? That's what I would say, personally, me.
I did this anyway, but I think it's a good message to people. Everyone must go through extreme isolation before they go into a relationship. You should be alone for at least a year and just be with yourself to realize who you are and what you want, rather than just being continuously influenced from your parents and then being influenced by your partner. Like, decide who you are first. And normally people get that like midlife crisis, right? Have that when you're 20.
Yeah.
So you can really realize who you are.
In other words, take the high road, son. But listen, thank you for coming on.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Riyad. I can't thank you enough.
I'm sure we'll do this again at some point. We've got a lot to talk about. But yeah, like, subscribe, you get it.
Riyad, it's been great, mate.